Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, it's Chicago Junction, being the radio program that is everything that is railroad. Now here's our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network, as well as being the chief engineer, Mr. John DeVito.
Well, thank you, Bri. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Tuesday, September the 23rd, the year 2014. Today's panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, once again, here's our announcer, Brian.
And welcome. And now here is our host with the most, our head conductor, Mr. Jack Red Ryan.
Most what?
We'll figure that out later.
Sounds good, though, doesn't it?
Whatever you want.
It rhymes, correct? Well, welcome again, folks. We're glad you're listening, and we're glad to be here. We always enjoy getting together like this. We're running a little late tonight. To my right is Dave Darushka. Hello.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Buenas noches.
He speaks Buenos tardes. He speaks French, too, see?
Oui, oui.
Was that Spanish? Oh, why did you speak Spanish?
No, Espanol.
And you are a retired engineer, correct?
Retired locomotive engineer, happily retired.
Yeah. Is there any other way to be retired?
There are miserable retired locomotive engineers.
Yeah. You're agreeing. Brian Valou?
Well, yes, this is Brian Blue, retired Navy chief and also retired locomotive engineer conductor.
And you fellas are very unusual that you're keeping an interest. You have a great interest in railroad as a pursuit of, as well as it was a livelihood at one time, correct?
That is correct.
It's very unusual.
As they say, you can take the boy out of the railroad, but you can't take the railroad out of the boy.
I know. Paul Harvey had said, now for you young folks out there listening, Paul Harvey was a news commentator for years right out of Chicago here. And he would do his noontime news very dramatically, and news and commentary, by the way. But he said he was being interviewed locally by Howard Miller. He said he had the most ideal situation because his vocation and his avocation were one and the same. So that's it's like you never have to go to work because you love what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Navy. I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And then I got out. They told me I had to get a job and everything, and all of a sudden I went to work for the railroad and going, okay, when's it going to be work?
Yeah. How long were you in the Navy, by the way?
24 years.
You were a career man.
Yes.
I've asked you that question before, but...
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, actually, I wasn't a lifer. I just... I stayed for 20 years and found out I liked it. Did 4 more.
Well, we do get comfort.
I felt that way about prison.
I can't say. Of course, we're all in prisons of our own. But let's get down to the... Did anyone have anything going that we want to talk about urgently? Who's up? Should we toss a coin? It's only the three of us.
Yeah, we're short crew today.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
we can do it.
It's that new union rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's on one of my topics tonight.
Go.
Hey, Joliet Station. Big changes in Joliet. Yeah. Trains don't stop at the Joliet Station anymore. They built new stations for Metro trains, and they will no longer cross over. The Rock Island will no longer cross over to the Joliet Station. And the Heritage trains will be loading on a different, where they've always been loading.
Basically.
But they have a real platform now instead of having to walk across hot tracks. And I think that may have taken place already.
Is UD gone?
UD is not gone yet. There's some question as to whether they're going to demolish the tower and save the machine inside for display, or if they're going to save the tower as a tourist attraction. I have seen people claiming both, so I have no idea what a recent map that was online showed that tower was going to stay. So we shall see.
There's nothing going on there now? Or? Nothing's going on at the old station now at all? Or?
Well, no. The city has taken full ownership of the station. They were part owners with Metra, and they've now acquired full ownership of the station, and it's going to be sort of a destination. I think they've got a caterer in there already, or some kind of event planning, dinners. They rent out the Grand Hall for different events, and then they're building intermodal terminal there for buses. So they're going to be improving it. I guess they're adding a new pedestrian tunnel. There are big changes over there.
Well, it will be used for something, though. It will still be
Yeah,
historical.
it's not going to be torn down or.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it'll probably. Amtrak is supposed to build a new platform as well, but that hasn't taken place yet. So I don't know if Amtrak's still stopping
At Joliet?
Joliet.
Oh,
until, I mean, at the station until they get their new platform built. There's been all kinds of issues of funding and stuff, of course.
Of course.
Well, you got, well, they'll probably use the Heritage platform.
That's possible. Yeah, there's a whole brand new Metra station. I wouldn't call it a station, but ticket offices and shelters and stuff. I haven't been out there yet. That's another thing. I cut this out of my local paper. Cunningham joins local officials to address area freight train problems. Mounting complaints about traffic delays and pollution concerns along the CSX freight lines has prompted State Senator Bill Cunningham and other local officials to push railroad executives for answers and consider legislation to address the problem. Essentially, this affects the Beverly, Mount Greenwood, Morgan Park communities. You have two sets of tracks that divide Beverly, Morgan Park from Mount Greenwood. There's also a bunch of cemeteries along there. And the CSX originally owned one line, which was the old B&O Chicago Terminal, and they took possession of the old Grand Trunk line from the Canadian National. So now both tracks are operated by CN, and they have a propensity for letting trains come down there and stop at Blue Island Junction and sit there with the crossings blocked. Also on the old Grand Trunk line, there's a long area with no crossings, and they like to park trains out there. And the people in the community complain because the trains sit there and idle overnight, or day, or 2, or 3. So it's a big bottleneck. They're getting trains down, and I know from experience working in freight and going into Bar Yard that you're kind of beholden to the dispatcher. I mean, the dispatcher's the guy that says, "Okay, I'm going to bring your train down. You'll have the signal at Blue Island Junction, and then get down there, and the signal's red, and then you sit and you sit and you sit." So, actually, Cunningham might be an interesting guy to get a hold of sometime and have him call in. Or my alderman. He's working with Alderman Matt O'Shea and State Representatives Fran Hurley, Kelly Burke, Evergreen Park Mayor Jim Sexton, and Dan Lipinski and Bobby Rush to try to put some pressure on CSX to clean up their act.
Those are the congressmen.
Yeah, this is.
I recognize Bobby Rush, and I recognize the name Dan
those
Lipinski.
Dan Lipinski. Those are Cunningham's a state representative, I believe. So that's what's going on in my neighborhood. To the east of me, declare Pullman a national park. It could become the Statue of Liberty for American labor. And this is from an editorial by U.S. Representative Robin Kelly. To declare Chicago's Pullman neighborhood a national park would be to cement its role in our country's labor movement. Pullman was the site of our nation's first major labor strike, the place that produced the first African-American labor union, and the reason why we celebrate today. So they're petitioning the National Park Service to declare all of Pullman urban national park. And they have a really slick brochure here that I can hold up to the microphone.
Sure, they can see it.
Look through the holes in your radio. But yeah, they're advocating for this, and it looks like it may happen. It looks really good. Actually, they're trying to pressure the president to go ahead and do this on his own unilaterally, as opposed to waiting for Congress to do something. So we'll see what happens. But it would be a great boon not only for Pullman, but for that whole area on the south side, the Kensington area.
Are you saying executive order?
Yeah, he can do that with a national park. He can unilaterally declare an area a national park, and it would, like I say, it'd be a great boon economically for that area, and it really needs it. So that's for the east. Let's see. Tinley Park wants Metro service during morning and afternoon rush hour. Now, if you're familiar with any of the metro lines, you know that really the only, three lines that run express service would be the electric, would be the Union Pacific line, and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Tinley Park officials are making a push for Metro to set commuter express service into Chicago's financial district during the morning and afternoon rush hours. In a written request to Regional Transportation Authority Chairman Kirk Dillard, officials suggested that Metro add the express option, which is similar to service provided on other suburban rail lines. So I guess the fine people in Tinley Park don't want to stop at every station. International study finds Chicago public transit lacking and dysfunctional. There are several issues preventing Chicago area public transit from being truly worthy of a city that sees itself as world class.
I could have told you that. That's an international study.
Yeah, and they could have paid you a lot of money to tell them that. Mm-hmm. Among those issues, funding, overlapping bureaucracies, and a lack of coordination between RTA, CTA, PACE, and Metra. Example, there is absolutely no reason Metra should be implementing Ventra more than a year after CTA and PACE went through headaches to do so. All three should be on board with a shared fare payment system now. So there was a long study. Funding is another issue, obviously. Chicago spends less on capital transit needs than it did 20 years ago, but Chicago's per capita transit spending is falling behind other cities in the U.S. and internationally. London spends 5 more times on transit per capita than Chicago, while New York spends 3 more times. Both New York and Philadelphia have a single board that oversees and appoints managers of transit operations. So, we've got all these different organizations running transit, and they don't seem to play well together.
Well, from someone who was born and bred and raised here, and it seemed like we probably went from having one of the best transportation systems. Of course, you didn't have something like PACE in those days. You had the CTA. Prior to that, you had Chicago surface lines were the streetcars, and you had the the ones that ran the boulevard. They had double deckers in the Chicago Motor Coach Company.
Motor Coach.
So you had private industry,
the
but
L
then
lines.
Even when the CTA took over, you still had you had lines that were running mostly 24 hours. You connected. It was. It seemed like things were run better, but things it's kind of like a vicious circle. They don't get used enough, so you cut back. So then you cut back more, and all of a sudden, people maybe they're afraid to even use public transportation after certain hours or any hours, depending on the circumstance. And all those things wear a thing down.
Well, the other issue is that as the federal government's role in public transportation has diminished in terms of funding. I mean, they fund capital projects, improvements like the Englewood flyover, increasing yard capacity, et cetera. They don't really give money for operations.
No.
And so the burden of it falls upon the transit agencies, the taxpayers, and the fare payers. And as taxpayers, you're downstate, you have no reason to want to support public transit in Chicago. As far as you're concerned, it's a free ride for them, and you're paying for them. So more and more the transit agencies raise the fares and, of course, make public transit less attractive. I mean, if you can go out and buy a cheap car, and not buy insurance, and drive illegally, you can get away with it until you have an accident. So
They're
that's
looking at me.
just looking around.
The only thing that'll stop some of these jokers, I was a cop for 34 years in Chicago, folks. The only thing that'll stop some of these jokers from driving is if you actually have them under arrest for that period in the station. They'll drive to court, they'll drive away from the station.
They did that on the news once. They were checking people's licenses as they left court, and all the people that were in court were driving away on suspended licenses.
The sheriff's department, when Mike Sheehan was sheriff, actually put tails on some people leaving court, going back to where they parked the car, probably illegally also, and driving away. But
so that there really does. I think one of the biggest issues, and it was attempted at one point, that The Northeastern Illinois Transit Task Force suggested that the operational structures of CTA, Metro, and PACE be combined into one larger agency. RTA recommended last year that the planning departments at the three agencies be consolidated. I mean, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for politicians. If
Sense
you
in
want to fill
politics,
jobs,
yeah, there's like fire and water there.
right? You know, you got to have someplace to put your friends. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you eliminate all those jobs, what are you going to do?
So you're going toward efficiency, you're cutting back, as you say. We have to support our patronage army somewhere, right?
Yeah. Okay, next up, Union Station plan could bring relief for Metra and Amtrak passengers.
Green relief?
Bring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that
For
mean?
as
St.
many as
Patrick's Day, or-
120,000 rail passengers who pass through each day, Union Station is either a mystifying maze of ramps and escalators or a perplexing funnel that forces them to navigate perilously narrow platforms. Commuting challenges including dodging water from leaking roofs and trying not to breathe diesel fumes too deeply. And anybody who's worked any of the Metro trains out of Union Station knows that it's a toxic soup down there. The buildings above the station have exhaust fans that haven't been maintained, and both Metro and Amtrak have sued the building owners to repair these things so that they can get them out of there. But I don't know how that's going. But in terms of the station itself, the Chicago Department of Transportation, Amtrak, and Metro, and other agencies have been working since 2010 on a master plan to improve the station and make commuting easier. An update Wednesday, and the date of this, I don't have the date of this, it was at least a couple weeks ago. Officials provided a glimpse of both short-term fixes, mainly better access to CTA buses, and proposals for long-term enhancements. Planners are studying ways to reconfigure the building, last remodeled in 1992 by its owner Amtrak, to accommodate more trains, passengers, and improve the flow of traffic. Now, I know one of the things that they've been talking about doing is getting the Southwest service out of Union Station over to Rock Island, over to LaSalle Street.
Right.
You know, and that may or may not happen. Again, it's all based on capital funds. Let me see what else I got here. Long-term improvements include converting unused platforms so they can be used by commuters in Amtrak. Tracks would be reliant to accommodate wider platforms and new stairways so passengers can exit without using the concourse. Now, the original Union Station, there was a glorious concourse building there that was demolished and replaced by a high-rise office building, and that part of the station just turned into a warren of hallways, and it's a disaster down there. Now, I've seen plans that they may actually demolish that office building overhead and build an office building, quote, concourse that would be a little more appropriate to a rail facility.
Right at Union Station?
Yeah. Yeah, the concourse building was along the river.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Union Station's on Canal.
Right.
And
I've
then-
been there.
Yeah. Haven't we all? I'll be there in October taking a train out east. So that's, you know, that's in the works. They're talking about, and you know, if this city is gonna maintain itself as a world-class city, it's gonna have to really improve its public transportation. I mean, you go to Europe.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can
what
go
it is-
anywhere.
A lot of the cities are sitting there, and well, the problem is they want the government to pay for everything.
The government is us.
And yes,
So we are us. You know.
no, it's not us. Our representatives,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep coming up with ways. As if it doesn't have rubber tires, we don't need to do anything about it. It's the problems happening in Philadelphia. SEPTA. SEPTA slowly has been cutting back.
What is SEPTA?
The Southeast Pennsylvania Transportation Authority.
That's so it's an anagram, huh?
Yes.
Not a candygram, an anagram.
And the anagram. Yeah, they took over the old Reading Company and Pennsylvania Railroad commuter traffic. And they actually cut out more service, so this way, we can afford it, you know. but they were actually had a plan to be dissolved in 5 years. So that way they wouldn't have the money to repair the bridges and everything. But one of the last places that had a fantastic service like you're talking about was L.A. And the rubber tire finally pushed them out in the 60s, in 1960. And now that they've brought back the streetcar again.
Oh, they are there, streetcars?
Oh yeah, from Long Beach. And it's so funny because the land that the track's laid on is the old Pacific Electric roadbed that they had to buy.
Yeah.
From Long Beach into L.A.
Yeah, when you talk about streetcars, I can remember as a kid now riding the Red Rockets on Ashland Avenue, and the Green Hornet was on different state, and there was the old Blue Goose, I think they called the one. It was looked more like the kind of like a smaller version of the Green Hornet. But
yeah, they had two different companies made those what they call presidential conference streetcars, and the Blue Gooses were the first ones, and then the Green Hornets came second.
Yeah, made by Brill, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it the St. Louis company? Or?
Yeah, St. Louis car company made the Green Hornets, and Brill made the Blue Gooses.
Yeah.
I think, John, can you step in a minute and help us out?
And then Pullman started making
You
them.
can remember now, John, better than I, the streetcar days. Am I right?
Yes, I do.
Weren't they more? Seemed they were solid, reliable, and always running right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, you're talking about the Green Hornet. That used to go right down Western Avenue, from Howard Street all the way south.
To about 79th Street, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then you had the other, the red ones.
The Red Rocket.
The Red Rocket, yeah. That was on Ashland Avenue. I remember that much. Yes.
I remember sitting in school. We were on 62nd and Paulina in the afternoon, warm day, first grade, second grade, third grade. Windows would be open. You hear the streetcar coming down. You knew what it was. It didn't annoy you, but it was a comforting sound because you knew it was solid. It was running.
And one good thing about them, they were right in the middle of the street. They had their tracks,
Right.
and they had their trolley wires up overhead. That they got their power to keep on running up and down the streets.
They call it LRT now, Light Rail Transit.
I really think there was some conspiracy to get rid of them or something.
Well, there was some
yes,
conjecture
there
about
was.
that.
But
with
then-
the oil companies and the tire companies and
GM.
GM, yeah.
Because, as you said, they were solid. Once they were there, they were going to run, it was going to be running. And they did a nice job of keeping the tracks clear.
Well, it's like when you had the electric buses still running when I was going to school here.
The trolley buses?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in 71,
sure.
72. And I remember after leaving Great Lakes, and 6 months later, I received an issue of Trains Magazine and a story about how Mayor Daley stopped the buses, and they printed the newspaper article in Trains, and it says, yeah, he was really tired of the pollution problem.
Electric. yeah.
And he said that, I go, why?
Feel that ozone, from
Ozone.
the arcing,
Yeah, ozone.
Now you know why the ozone layer is disappearing.
You're right.
If it's disappearing, truly. But that was the best hybrid that you had. They could accelerate quickly. They used those same wires, I believe, the same lines that were used. I know they were on Kedzie. They were on 47th Street, Grand Avenue. Where else were they?
Belmont.
North Avenue.
North Avenue?
North Avenue.
Yeah. And they could accelerate. They could go into the curb, back and out, back and forth,
The reason why I know this for a fact because my Uncle Joe Pelican, he drove the North Avenue bus right down North Avenue from Cicero Avenue's where they had their big barn. And they'd be going down the street, and all of a sudden the what do you call it? The trolley up on top, with the shoes up on top, where they would ride the wires. Sometimes when they would go across intersections, they would jump, and there would be the bus stalled in the middle of the intersection.
They'd get out and
They had
fix
to
it.
get out, and they had to pull the rope down, and then redo the shoe again up
And
up
put
there.
the pulley back up.
Yeah.
And,
was
yeah,
what-
and now if you want to see it, you go to Dayton, Ohio, or
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Toronto has them.
Well, I know they've got. I don't know if they've got buses.
Toronto has trolley buses.
They do,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, streetcars. Yeah.
Yeah.
streetcars.
Well, yeah, they got streetcars.
Streetcars, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused here. I was confused when I got up this morning, and I'm always confused. So
Yeah, you called me at 8:20 this morning. You must have been confused. You must have thought you were calling somebody who gets up early.
Well, I hope I didn't wake you.
No.
I figure I'm the kind of guy, if it's 3 a.m. and I'm awake, the whole world must be awake. That's how I am.
There you go.
All right? But I still, and you go places in the city, if you go to a viaduct somewhere, you will see that in many instances, I don't know if everywhere, that the rail is paved right over.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, why not? Why not reintroduce them?
I'm always amazed that I belong to a couple history groups on Facebook, and whenever they do street work and they uncover trolley tracks, people go out and take pictures of them like there's some kind of lost,
Fossil.
Oh, look, fossils, yeah. Look, tracks. What ran on these?
Yeah,
The trains ran down the street.
Yeah, the rail version of Susie.
Well, have you got anything?
No, he pretty much covered what I was talking about.
I got a ton of stuff, man. I keep on going all night.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I can interject on some of the things he's
please
talking
do.
about, and it's great.
I got a couple Amtrak issues.
Let's do
Amtrak. Leaders bringing Amtrak service to Rockford. It's going to happen. Back in... Governor Pat Quinn came to Rockford in April to announce the ambitious plan. Since then, IDOT officials said they've started the preliminary engineering process, met with all the communities getting train stations, and are already getting environmental impact studies back. The proposal calls for using existing Union Pacific Railroad tracks. Extensive work must be done to get them ready for passenger trains, said IDOT officials. Construction is expected to begin in October. Officials say at first they anticipate one daily round trip running by the end of the year, then 2 daily round trips by 2016. So there, all you laughing doubters.
In fact, was it Iowa Pacific Rail Journeys? In fact, they've actually been advertising it. They're going to, in October, they're running 3 round trips from Chicago to Madison, Wisconsin.
Ooh.
The old varsity.
Yeah.
Milwaukee Road varsity train. And one of the second train is specific for going to the football game.
Hey, we got music.
Did our caller call? So, but it looks like it's going to be good if you go to Iowa Pacific Rail Journeys on the web. You'll be able to get the prices on the tickets and
Make your reservations
yeah,
now.
They're going to doing a dome. Dome will be first class, so everything will be free on there, the food and drink. And you got coach class, which is like $99, and you'll have to pay for the food.
Oh, no, I don't want to go anywhere where the food's not free. I'm a railroader.
Yeah, of course. We know better.
Yeah, right.
When you're talking about those expected to start in construction's expected to start in October.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is the operative word expected? Is that would that be?
There's many expectations.
Yeah. I still remember we had this our English grammar book in 5th grade or whatever it was. Expectations seldom approach reality. That's powerful, wasn't it? For a bunch of 10-year-olds. Another one was I lost all my marbles. I remember that. That was one. Someone's idea of being funny with the kids too, I guess.
It appears they've also hired an architectural firm, according to the Spike and Tie, the Black Hawk Railway Historical Society newsletter. They've hired an architectural firm. Rockford Mass Transit District will pay Legat Architects of Chicago up to $250,000 for design and architectural work for the station near the tracks owned by the UP.
Oh.
Let's see. Expects Legat's design for a station on Cedar will be similar to the firm's earlier design for a South Main Street station near the Tinker Swiss Cottage. If you're familiar.
And where's this now? I'm sorry.
Rockford.
Oh, Rockford.
Downtown, beautiful Rockford.
Okay. I used to have an uncle live there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of talks of startups. I know there's the Indiana's been struggling with funding for that.
And while Indiana's struggle is going to take a quick break.
Oh,
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Be right back.
You are listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Nords, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Tuesday, September the 23rd, year 2014. And this is Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Nords, a Ridgewood High School radio station. And now back to our panel and Chicago Junction.
So I was saying, Indianapolis to Chicago, the state refused to fund any further funding for that Amtrak service.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then, but they did take bids on the service, and a private contractor went out over Amtrak. And it's a organization that owns a bunch of former bi-level cars out of Chicago. The guy who is the CEO is a former Metro employee. And yeah, I thought maybe they'd have it here in the newsletter. It doesn't look like it's in here. But yeah, that's a big deal that they passed. They got somebody to run it, but they're not going to fund it. So good luck there. Let's see, other Amtrak news. Durbin blames Canadian National for Amtrak delays. Senator Dick Durbin addressed at the Amtrak station in Carbondale the continued delays of the Chicago-Champaign-Carbondale line. Durbin referred to the line as the worst performing state-supported train in the country, saying the priority given to freight train interference along lines operated by Canadian National has caused Amtrak trains on the Chicago-Champaign-Carbondale route to be delayed more than half the time. Now, I guess they've tried to play nice with the CN, but of course the CN, being Canadians, they don't they don't much care what we think.
He can also afford to criticize them because they don't vote, or do they? I'm not sure now.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the problems is the railroad itself. It was a beautiful north-south running railroad.
Right.
Which one is that now I'm talking about?
The Illinois Central.
Oh, I
their
see.
main line to
The main line to New Orleans,
New Orleans.
was double track all the way.
Mhm.
And they even had passing sidings so the passenger trains can go around. And then in the 70s with all the bankruptcies going on and the fall of the Penn Central, and they tore up a lot of track, one, to stop paying taxes, and now they're trying to do it, and then they decide, well, we're just going to do passing sidings instead of just laying the double track down.
Now, you just said a mouthful. Taxes.
Yeah.
That's always the problem.
Yeah, well, this way they don't have the track on it. They don't have to pay property
I understand,
tax.
yeah. But I understand, too, from a discussion I was listening to, as far as, say, manufacturing in the U.S., the manufacturers could handle wages and that sort of thing, but it's the taxes that is prohibitive, the tax structure. So...
Well, we're not talking those politics. We'll stay. Let's stay with railroad politics.
Got somebody? Oh, we have a caller. Woo-hoo. Hello, Bob.
Yes.
Bob Barkus?
Yes,
And you're from the Hoosier Valley Railroad Museum, correct?
that's correct.
Can you tell us all about your operation? You're talking
Absolutely.
to Dave DeRushka and Brian Valou and myself, Jack Ryan here, and we want to know all about it. This is the place where people are supposed to learn about all the museums and what's going on, and let's hear it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. The Hoosier Valley Railroad Museum is located in North Judson, Indiana. We're about an hour southeast of Hammond, and we were formed in 1988, so we've been around for about 26 years. And we kind of frame ourselves as an operating attraction. We operate a number of tourist trains out of North Judson, in addition to having our museum grounds and a number of artifacts that are on display, whether it be rail cars, locomotives, or various types of structures. We actually have quite a bit to look at for a small town.
Okay. And you have any excursions, rides, or anything?
Yeah, we operate every Saturday, May through October, and the museum is actually open year-round every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and that's Central Time.
And you're not very far from us there, I understand, right? You're not kind of on the way toward people who are going, say if they're visiting the kids at college
Right.
at Notre Dame or Purdue or Michigan somewhere?
Right. We're about an hour away from South Bend and about an hour away from Lafayette, so we're kind of centrally located, and we do have quite a few people come in from those areas. Those are our basically our target market. But we have regular people come to ride from as far away as Fort Wayne, up into Michigan, many other locations.
So this is North Judson, Indiana, correct?
Yeah.
And so if someone would say they like to go to the outlet mall in Michigan City, they could take a little detour and take the kids and the whole family to your museum, correct?
Yes, they can actually just go straight down State Road 39, and they're almost there. They're just a couple of miles away from the museum at that point. And we offer several different types of excursions, and of course we have our special events, which are the most popular attractions for us, especially coming up here in October with our pumpkin trains, our fall harvest trains, and our Halloween train.
That must be autumn. We're talking about pumpkins now.
Yeah, the
Last day of
pumpkin
summer.
trains are very popular. And what we've actually noticed is that there's usually more adults on board the trains than there are kids. So it seems like the adults seem to enjoy it just as much, if not more, than the kids do.
We got the little kids and the big kids, right?
Absolutely.
Got a bunch of big kids sitting right there. Any questions, guys? Got some?
Yeah, well, the trackage that you're running on, which railroad trackage was it?
We actually, the museum itself is along the old Erie main line, and we primarily operate our excursions over the old C&O main line that ran from Chicago, or the Hammond area, down to Cincinnati. That was the Chesapeake and Ohio of Indiana.
Okay.
And that is the track. The C&O track is actually owned by the town of North Judson, and we helped acquire that from CSX about 10 years ago, and it's operated by the Chesapeake and Indiana Short Line.
What are you using for motive power?
Primarily, we switch between two locomotives. We have in Erie, Lackawanna, Alco S1, and we have a General Electric 95-tonner, which is an in-cab switcher that was used by Interlake Iron.
Do you get any visiting locomotives?
No, not right now, no. We do have other locomotives that are actually under restoration right now in our shop. Last fall, we acquired a 65-ton locomotive from the University of Notre Dame. They donated that to us, and we moved that by truck to our facility. And that's actually in our back shop right now, undergoing some restoration.
Do you have steam and diesel, or?
We operate only with diesel. We do have a couple of steam locomotives on the property, but they're non-operational. They're just static displays. That also includes our C&O 2789, which is a 284.
Oh, nice Kanawha.
Yeah, it's a big engine. We usually pull that out of the shop on Sundays or Saturdays to let people get pictures of that and just be in awe of the size of that locomotive, because it's a huge locomotive. And it's actually a unique steam locomotive in that the last it's the last locomotive in the series of 90 that the C&O built of the 284 configuration. There were 5 of them built with welded boilers, and this is the only one that's still in existence with a welded boiler.
Okay. Roller bearings all around?
For the most part. There's still some friction bearings on the tender and on the trailing track.
And your equipment's stored indoors, out of the elements?
Excuse me. We try to keep our nice stuff inside if we can handle it, and our shop is a 2-track shop. We've expanded that twice in the last 20 years to handle more and more equipment, and we actually have room to add a 3rd track to the shop. That's still in the planning stages when we get time to actually get that done. Our shop track 2 is usually filled with stuff that we're working on. Mm-hmm. So there's usually something going on down there in the shop, and of course that's open to the public. We've got, we don't really restrict access anywhere on the property. The museum is free. You can come down and actually look at anything that we've got anywhere on the property. The only thing we charge for are train tickets.
Hmm. Do you have any supporting members or membership sort of a thing? Or?
Yeah, we have memberships. We have about 300 members, primarily from northern Indiana, but we have members as far away as Canada, Australia, all around the world.
Okay. And let's see, how are you seasonal? Do you shut down for the winter, or?
Well, operational-wise, we do shut down for the most part. We do run Santa trains in December. We have our Easter train in the spring. We use the winter time to actually help with the maintenance and the restoration work. So we need as a small core membership that actually does most of the work. So we need those guys actually keeping everything running.
So it's a busy, even when there's nothing going on outside, right?
Yeah, most of the time it's pretty busy. Some of us are there every Saturday, so we wear multiple hats. I myself, I'm the treasurer on the board of directors, but at the same time, I also run the gift shop. I'm a certified and qualified conductor, so I might be on the train. I could be selling tickets in the ticket office. Most of us are very flexible in what we can do.
Certified conductor. I'm sitting with 2 retired engineers right here, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It can be hard work sometimes, trust me. I've learned myself that it's probably a good thing that I didn't go to work for the railroad.
Hey, you got a big got about 8 in the laugh meter here with that one. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So this is your advocation, your pursuit, your hobby?
Yeah, we're an all-volunteer organization. None of us get paid to do this. We do have current and retired railroaders who are part of our membership. It's a good mix of people. Most of our members are just avid rail fans, and that's really what drives the museum. We've made a number of acquisitions over the years, whether it be a boxcar, a locomotive, or we actually moved Griselli Switching Tower from East Chicago, which was on the Indiana Harbor Belt. We moved that back in 2011, I believe it was, or 2009, actually, I think it was. We moved that down to our facility, and it's almost done with its restoration. We also have a very large collection of operating signals on the property that are actually tied in with track circuits and everything else. So it's they don't actually operate under signal authority, but it's a nice display for people to see how all of that stuff worked, whether it's a semaphore or a position light signal or whatever we have in that particular location.
How much property do you have there?
The museum is actually spread out over quite a big area. I don't know what the exact acreage is, but we do. I'd say we probably have about 20 acres right there at the museum property.
Okay, for everyone listening, that's about 40 football fields then, right?
It's a pretty good. We have quite a bit of land, and we own all of it, which is good for us. Nobody can kick us out. The museum itself has about 1.5 miles of track, and that's all Erie trackage. The yard that's located there at the museum, that was all rebuilt by our museum membership over the last 20 years. We also have some plans to eventually reinstall the Y that was there in North Judson that connected the Erie with the New York Central.
Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No.
Well, thank you very much.
Good luck.
Definitely.
I see in the my guidebook on Guide to North American Tourist Railways Museums, you have a website,
Yes.
and
We're
give it to me.
located at HoosierValley.org.
HoosierValley.org?
Yep.
Okay, they have hvm.railfan.net here. Is this the old one?
That's an old one. That's an old address. So
Hoosier, how say it again? Hoosier?
HoosierValley.org.
Oh, very easy to remember.
Yeah.
So, okay, Bob Barkas, Hoosier Valley Railroad Museum, North Judson, Indiana. Thank you very much. And we'll be stopping out there on the way to Notre Dame in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Thank
Look forward
you.
to it. Thanks.
Okay. Always good to talk to someone, make ourselves a little more aware of what's around. That's not far at all. That's just a stone's throw. That's, of course, when you go to a foreign country, you can always find the American Embassy. It's always just a stone's throw away. That's going back a ways.
Yeah, just go follow the stones.
Yeah, just follow people
Anyway,
throwing stones.
I got a question. Maybe we kick around a little bit. There are different publications like books and magazines and periodicals on rail that people can learn from and subscribe to. And is there anything they should start with, you think? Or what do you think, Brian?
You look at the basic rail magazines themselves, like Trains from Kalmbach Publishing, or Railfan, now part of White Feather River Publications.
White River Productions.
White River Productions. And I know, because I got the last issue finally 2 weeks after the lady told me it was coming out, and then I read the week later that Karsten's is folded and closed the doors.
Yeah.
But these publications, they've got basics on railroading, doing stories about either fan trip engines or events going on. And they have news sections that'll keep people updated.
Yeah, I think Trains is a lot more industry oriented,
Yeah,
a lot more than
yeah.
it used to be.
And then it has, but it always has a section in the back where people ask questions. And, and then they get a hold of people who are familiar with it to answer. And then also have one on preservation news.
Right.
With whether it be a locomotive or cars, or just the pieces of history, music and such, like the Pullman on the museum on the Pullman Porters in the book.
Right. A. Philip Randolph Museum.
That would be the place to start. But they have books out on locomotives, and they'll have you a nice description of a locomotive, and they'll have a section in the front to tell you everything you wanted to know about a locomotive and really didn't want to ask. But it'll have cutaway views, and in layman terms explains everything, so that the person reading it will be able to get something from it. And the same when you go to diesel or electric locomotives, they have on their sections, they'll have the cutaways, and in this way it'll explain how the air comes in, how the diesel engine works.
All those great drawings with the section of
a cross section. And little arrows pointing, this goes this way, and then this goes this way. And then if you do this, this is what happens.
And winds up with the wheels moving.
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're really into like strictly historic railroading, Classic Trains, which is another Calmback publication, it just covers railroading as it used to be.
Which is this now?
It's called Classic Trains.
Classic Trains, all right.
Yeah,
Right.
Classic Trains.
Published by the same people that published Trains magazine.
And what it is, it's like I said, on the past. And then they come out with a couple of annuals.
Right.
There was a series of articles that was done in Trains magazine in the 50s, towards the end of Steam. David P. Morgan, the editor, and Philip Hastings, photographer, traveled all over looking for the end of Steam and getting it and writing stories. Well, and it filled the magazine towards the end of the 60s. And what Classic Trains did was get a hold of those articles and bind them together and came up with a 3-volume set of all the stories.
Sure.
And
A little history assembled that way.
yeah.
Yeah, my favorite part of the magazine is in the very back, they have stories from people who work for the railroads.
Right.
Telling, the day I fired this locomotive with this jerkwad engineer. It's some really fun stuff. It's like for a railroader, it's always, as me, a retired railroader, it's enjoyable
To read the
to
stories.
read about stories about what people went through.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, because back before we came to the railroad, they were at 16-hour days, and rather than 12. And you sit there and listen. Well, this is what happened when we did this, and I had this great smart engineer told me how to do this. Now get a bucket of stones and stuff. When they were talking about having bad fires in the locomotives, and they actually guy poured stones down a bucket. They pulled the throttle, and what it did, the rocks inside with the vacuum and the steam going through, banged into the mesh in there to clean it, so this way air can get through. And all of a sudden, everything was going okay.
It's so great that these men, and we're basically men, correct? Males,
Yes.
documented these sort of things for posterity. I mean, in their own words, right?
Yes.
Although during World War II, there were a lot of women working on the
I'm
railroads.
sure, yeah, we know- I know
In
that.
fact, there was I have a book on railroaders. This guy did, and several of the railroaders are actually females, and that did not leave the railroad after World War II. They stayed and worked. The gal worked all the way up into the Conrail era, and she worked the first year of Conrail, and then retired. But she worked for the New York Central, and she was a brakeman.
As what?
A brakeman. Brake person.
Brakeman. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, brakeman's fine. In English, we go to the masculine when we mean the general.
Yeah, when everybody says go on PC, we know Penn Central. Not politically correct.
Physical
and
culture,
there's
how's that?
The thing too about the rail fan business is it's so many niche markets. I mean, there's so many different and varied interests, from photography to collecting, to just reading about stories. It's pretty complex.
I mean, you do have diesel enthusiasts, steam enthusiasts, and then you've got people. They want to know the rules back then on what happened or how they did things, and even the cooking. Cooking has become a big thing. Find a railroad cookbook.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Railroad China, great collectible.
In fact, there's a place called Monon Junction down near Monon, Indiana, a museum. The gentleman who started this museum owns rock quarries. Well, he got into collecting lanterns and railroad china. And he has this nice diner and museum. If you go down the road, he's got some old cars that he's had restored in his warehouse, and they take them out there as each one's restored. And so you got cabooses, flat cars. And if the flat cars, they've got old steam tractors on them or old gas tractors. But you go inside, and he's actually taken some old stations. One's in Illinois and one's Pennsylvania. took them down board by board, and reassembled them on his property.
This is still in existence now?
Yes, it's called Monon Junction.
Monon, M-O?
Monon.
Monon Junction. Railway Museum?
Yeah, it's a railway. Yeah, it's a combination restaurant and museum, right along the old Monon main line.
Where about is Monon from here?
Monon would be east of Lafayette.
All right, okay.
In fact, it's on Route 410.
Not that far away?
So if you go far enough up north, you'll be in Michigan City. So it's a
there.
couple hours south.
There we go. Monon Connection Museum. This museum features a completely furnished, full-size replica of an Illinois Central depot and outdoor displays. Exhibits include a large collection of dining car china, hundreds of handheld lanterns, and restored brass steam locomotive bells and whistles. Open Tuesday through Sunday, and they're online at mononconnection.com. So MONON connection.com.
Remember where you heard it, folks.
And his lantern collection is almost 6,000. He has also prototypes from the patent office. The station that he talked about that's inside was an IC station. And what is in, if you walk through, you'll be actually walking through a corridor because they put plastic walls up on the side, so you walk one end of the building to the other. The other came from a guy's basement who built in his basement the station. So everything he took out of the station, this guy had that they saw, and everything they had, they fit right into it, including the telephone, telegraph. And like I said, it came from this one guy's house, and they got it all closed off because the guy donated it to him.
So something like this started sort of like a hobby on someone's part? And
Somebody, he liked lanterns and or china. Like I said, railroad china is very, very sought after.
Is it?
Oh, yes.
Now you say railroad china, is that was what served passengers with?
Yeah,
or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Carchan.
Yeah.
Either from the Pullman Company or the railroad itself had its own china and had several different designs. Milwaukee Road, New York Central, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, if they had a named train, more than likely the China reflected the named train. You know,
right.
20th Century Limited.
They have their logo on there probably
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, the logo, or it would be in their colors. There were several different patterns. You had the Hiawatha, but one of their patterns was a peacock for Milwaukee Road. But you go to, and people, like Dave mentioned, there's music, there's stories, movies. Just learning the history of one railroad and what it took.
Right.
The country it went through, or everybody that had a covered bridge. Maybe you like the New Englander. I mean, that's how a lot of these books get written, because somebody took an interest of it.
I belong to the Center for Railroad Photography and Art. Now, their focus is basically photographs of the railroad and artwork that is railroad inspired or done for railroads, done for advertising. And every year they have an annual meeting in Lake Forest, Illinois, with people presenting on different topics. So you'll have famous photographers featured, some still living, people who were shooting steam back in the 40s and 50s will come in and show their photographs. And they're also, culture, they're bringing up new people. You know, they have a scholarship program for young photographers. They have an annual competition, and if you win the competition, your way is paid for the conference. So it's railroads continue to fascinate people. I just recently got their newsletter, the most recent newsletter, and there's an article in there about I think it was 6 young photographers, talking about how railroad photography isn't dead. The railroads have changed tremendously. We don't have as many as we used to, but there's still a lot of interest out there in taking pictures.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I saw an article in Trains magazine. They were talking about one kid doing night photography with all the new equipment, and they were actually equating him with Mr. Link, Winston Link, who really made night photography.
Mr. Flashbulb.
Well, it was well, yeah, it was done in the old flashbulb days. But what this guy did in photography was amazing. He was definitely gave birth to the night photography.
There's nothing more beautiful than good black and white photography. It's archival. It's it's just beautiful. I mean, color fades, but black and white.
Well, you see a lot of people now doing HDR, high definition resolution image processing and stuff, which really makes it more artful.
Right.
Right.
But like you saw, I remember I attended one of those meetings you were talking about, and that was before Mr. Steinbrenner passed away from out west.
Yeah.
And he was
Steinheimer.
Steinheimer.
Yeah, Richard.
Not the owner of the Yankees.
No.
That's Steinbrenner.
That's Steinbrenner. And, no, the only Brenner I like was the comedian who passed away recently.
Yeah, Brenner.
David Brenner.
David Brenner. Yeah, Brenner. So anyway, this is going to bring us down to the end of the line, and I want everyone to remember, happy rails to you, and we will be back next time. Thanks for listening.
All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Join us again next time when we take our railroad of imagination on our continuing journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network and can be heard over this station as well as the WindyCityHometown.com, where recordings of all our shows may be heard. Once again, all aboard. This is your announcer and rail enthusiast, Brian Valou. I want to thank you for listening. Oh yeah, the conductor was portrayed by Charlie Johnson, a struggling young actor in need of work.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Tuesday, September the 23rd, year 2014. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVito. Our audio engineer is James Rohde, radio station manager Kevin Zeflik, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is Mr. John Chicana. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Monday, September the 22nd, the year 2014. Until next time, be safe and thanks for listening.